But they have not recognized the 62 billion clawback, which must be done. And based on that, financial accounts has to be restated. 485 billion revenue, 82 billion profit for 2024. Out of the 62 billion deferred revenue, 51 billion is for the first half and 25.5 billion is the first quarter, making this perceived loss of 18.5 billion loss into a 7 billion profit. That's the real accounting. LECO already does accounting like this. CEB needs to go back and learn the very, very basics of accounting. In terms of working in the future with IMF, there are three things that we need to align. One is the financial accounts that I spoke about. Second, with the tariff methodology, and the second is BSTA must be aligned also with tariff methodology. Now, BSTA was first set up on the 1st of July 2024 with a negative 15 billion rupee balance. This is wrong. How they should have done is assume the starting point of BSTA is 1st of January 2024, and then looked at the 30th June 2024 balance. That should have been the starting balance of July 1st. If this correction is done, then the BSTA and the tariff methodology aligns, and then if you want the automatic tariff adjustment can come in place. Until we do this correction, we are going to have problems with IMF. So my request to PUCSL is to work with other stakeholders and get this done as fast as possible. Now, the current tariff proposal, CB loss for first quarter 2025, which I initially mentioned is incorrect, has added back to the tariff as a negative clawback. This is not allowed. Transmission and distribution allowed revenues are set up front. They cannot change mid-year. I just want to highlight the CEB hydro forecast for the last revision. For the first 5 months of the year, had an error of 20%, which means we got 20% more water than what they projected, which goes on to show that their hydro projection is still very error prone. How this relates to this year is that if you look at the October, November, December rainfall, this is not El Nino or La Nina year, so it should get normal rainfall. But what CEB has projected is lowest across the third lowest rainfall for the last 3 years. This is wrong. There's no data to justify it. If you compare 2016 and 2020, 2016 we did not have Umawe, Broadlands, and even Polpitia was lower capacity. So if you adjust that, the current projection for October to December rainfall is even the second lowest when corrected. So there's no way this is going to happen, and this under budgeting of rainfall is artificially inflating the thermal generation and the overall cost of CEB. This has to be corrected by PUCSL. The problem we have is that looking at the last 5 months operation, CEB clearly is mismanaged hydro. For example, everybody knows that from mid-May to end April is the irrigation season. So Victoria, Nandinikala and Ranthambore water release is constrained. But what CEB did was they hoarded water from the Mahabali reservoir, especially Kotmale and Victoria, going into this period, and completely eroding the water in the Lakshapana reservoir is going below 30%. Now that resulted in Water Board putting restrictions on release from the Lakshapana reservoirs, and we ended up with heavy use of oil while keeping quite a lot of hydro reservoirs capacity open in the Mahabali complex. So this type of stuff is happening, and it should not be allowed. Those additional thermal costs cannot be passed to the consumers. What we also need to understand is that currently solar electricity is actually reducing cost to consumers. It's happening in 2 ways. We can see that 2025, we still have very high storage, even though major rainfalls just started. This is because, and what solar is doing is it's displacing oil during daytime. You can see it in any day. There is no space for thermal power plants to come into play, especially oil power plants. But solar is also reducing the water usage during daytime, and that the saved water is now easily usable in the evening peak, thereby displacing oil in the evening peak. So what solar is effectively doing is displacing oil. It's not displacing coal, it's not displacing water, it's actually displacing oil. Sadly, CEB and the minister is butchering solar tariffs based on faulty calculations, based on average cost, rather than recognizing that what solar is doing is reducing oil in the margin. PUCSL has a role to play. We know for the last 7-8 months, CB has been illegally curtailing renewable energy, including solar, mini hydro, wind, and that this came to a peak during New Year and Vesak. If CEB is curtailing outside the contract terms, which they do, developers must be compensated, and PUCSL has a role to ensure equity to all the parties. The reason why this is happening is that CB did not build the battery storage plants that is in the approved generation plan of 2023-2042. They must be held accountable for this. Their failures of execution cannot be addressed through penalizing renewable energy developers. We also need to look at there's a number of provisions that CB has not complied with related to PUCSL directives. The first one is related to dispatch audit, still not has been done. Second one is to correct the heat rates of the power plant PPA, especially West Coast. This is decades-old ruling, still not done, and PUCSL gave a directive for CB to enter into oil purchase agreements with CPC, and without that, future tariff revisions will not be enough. And even this is being continuously ignored. So I think we can't continue to play this game on a continuous basis. My question to PUCSL is, when your licensees are directly ignoring the directives given by you, and these are conditional directives for tariff, why are you continuing to ignore it? If they are not doing it, either stop the tariff revision or take them to court. We need proper regulation. The real purpose behind tariff is to pay for efficient costs of CB. Right now, the tariff mechanism is set up to just reward CB for all the inefficiencies. And my request to PUCSL is please start looking at the efficiency side of it. Please don't just pass whatever the expenses to consumers, because that is not the role. That is not the tariff methodology as articulated. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.